This time I'd like to call our meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Commissioner Carson, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
No, they're not calling.
Oh, they're not calling.
Would the clerk please proceed with the roll call?
Commissioner Carson?
Here.
Commissioner Green? Commissioner Newton?
Here.
Vice Mayor Flippen?
Here.
Mayor Resnick?
Thank you. And just for the public's awareness, both Commissioner Green and Mayor Resnick are attending the National League of Cities meeting, and that is why they are not here this evening with us. Commissioner Carson, back to you again. Would you like to welcome our guests this evening?
Absolutely. Thank you for being a part of your local government. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the city, all of the commissioners and the mayor, and I hope that you appreciate the time that you have here, and as always, we can't do our job unless you share your concerns with us. So we appreciate the opportunity to be of service to you, and we hope that you will continue to share your concerns with us, and welcome to your City Commission meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. Colleagues, at this time, are there any additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda? I do have a couple of items, but Commissioner Carson?
Yes, Vice Mayor, I'd like to, under items on the next meeting agenda, a discussion about the funding of Carrefour for the affordable housing which will be located on the Pride Center campus.
Okay. I'm also going to have something with regards to the scheduling of our organizational meeting in November. Did you have anything else?
One other item, if we have the opportunity to discuss it, is the consideration of business licenses and the requirement for those businesses that have child care facilities or playgrounds to require background checks for their employees.
Did you want that under new business this evening, or did you want that?
That would be great under new business.
Okay, background checks.
Seriously.
If we get there. All right. All right. Commissioner Newton, did you have anything?
Can we move the Boyne appointment to consent agenda?
Without objection from...
So moved.
All right. And
Is there another one?
13A, the direction to staff to proceed with Andrews Avenue, Oakland Park Boulevard land use amendment application.
Yes, I would like to see that too.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So we'll move this without objection, Commissioner, but I appreciate you motioning and seconding if necessary. All right. So other than that, have we got everything covered? Good?
Motion to approve consent agenda?
We're not there yet, Commissioner.
Excuse
but
me,
I'll
sir. Thank you.
I'll get to you as soon as we
I'm
hear
trying
from,
to- I'm
from
trying
the
to
public
help
first.
Commissioner
but
Newton.
I appreciate that. We'll proceed to comments from the public.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your time. You have 3 minutes to address this commission on any subject that you deem important. And just as a reminder, this is your time to speak to us. It's not the time where we're able to communicate back and forth, but you do have 3 minutes. So if you would come to the podium, we just ask for your name and address for the record, please. Mr. Kudo.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Kuda, and I reside at 500 Northeast 28th Street in Wilton Manors. I join in commending Jeff Sterling, the Wilton Manors Entertainment Group, the city staff, businesses, volunteers, and sponsors for hosting a very successful 19th Stonewall Festival and Parade in Wilton Manors on June 16th. I have read that attendance may have been as high as 40,000 people, a record. It would be unfortunate that with the narrowing of the drive that we might have to move the festival and parade to another street in the future. I also wish to commend publisher Norm Kent and the staff of the South Florida Gay News for publishing their 144-page guide to South Florida gay-owned and gay-friendly businesses dining establishments, and entertainment venues, largely in the Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale areas, to coincide with the Stonewall Festival. This professional, informative, and largely tasteful pocket guide contains a welcome letter on page 8 from Mayor Gary Resnick at the paperclip for the City Commission. It seems to me that some board members of the Wilton Manors Business Association should have been aware of that this publication was forthcoming and should not have tried to emulate it in the recent WIMBA directory. Speaking of the SFGN, I wish to welcome Miss Sally James, who is here tonight, as the new reporter of the Wilton Manors Gazette, replacing Michael de Oliveira. Lastly, in a 5-4 vote on June 21st, the U.S. Supreme Court finally ruled that states have the authority to make online retailers collect sales taxes. Now, it may take the state of Florida a year or so to promulgate rules and regulations for this internet tax, and I hope they adopt the South Dakota model. This tax on web sales should generate several billions of dollars in additional revenues for this state and its cities. I am sure that this will be a hot topic at the Florida League of Cities Conference in August in Hollywood. And it would be nice if the delegates recommended that a large portion of this internet sales tax revenue should be devoted to education and infrastructure in our state. This is one more reason to vote against the proposed sales tax increase in Broward County on this November's election ballot. I thank the City Commission.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Boyd Corbin. I live at 12 Northeast 26th Street. A reporter recently asked me why I'm running for mayor. 6% annual city employee raises when inflation is 2% over 8 years is crazy. Soon almost all our taxes will go towards pensions and we won't have enough money to run the city. We pay between $100 and $300 each month for water that is green and full of bad chemicals above and beyond the high level of chlorine which makes your skin itch. The city continuously steals about 15% of these funds to pay for city employee raises. People on fixed incomes cannot afford this. We pay Lanier about $500,000 a year to check parking meters and write parking tickets. The Wilton Manors Police Department could do this for half the price, which would put more much-needed cops on our streets to help with speeders and intoxicated people on Wilton Drive. We are currently short 5 police officers. We need a chief of police with integrity who can keep the department fully staffed by placing public safety over profits. Overzealous code enforcement officers torment businesses by making them take their signs down and threatening to make them get rid of neon signs. Years later, they change their mind and decide to allow neon and other forbidden signs. We need a parking garage, as was strongly recommended in last year's 185-page parking report. That's being ignored. Churches and supermarkets should not be rezoned to allow condos where a Publix is located. We need to stop all lane elimination projects since over 80% of residents do not support this insanity. Term limits are needed for the City Commission. 24 years on the commission is just too long. It only helps feed corruption. My opponent, Justin Flippin, became a commissioner in 2008 and then quit halfway through his term to run for a state political job. After Hurricane Irma, Justin, along with the mayor, skipped town when residents needed their leadership the most. I hope you two found a nice air-conditioned place while the city had no power. I'm running for mayor because I'm tired of the mismanagement that's affecting our health, our safety, our finances, and our quality of life. Collahatchee Park is a disgrace. Bathrooms are closed, and cops still can't stop the sexual activities. Our parks should be open 7 days a week. And City Hall should be open 5 days a week. Stop throwing away over $100,000 on a PR campaign telling us life is just better here, because there's a lot of room for improvement. Do you have any comments? Not a back and forth, but do you have any comments at all on anything that I said, commissioners? I didn't think that. Thank you.
Would anyone else from the public like to address the commission?
Sal Torre, 309 Northwest 20th Street, President of the West Side Association. We are having a general membership meeting this Thursday at Hagan Park Community Center. Social half hour begins at 6:30, and then we have our meeting starting at 7. Our main presentation is on residential solar installations with a speaker including a speaker from Golden Solar and the Southern Alliance on Clean Energy. We're also going to have updates on hurricane preparedness, including city special needs database, and that's going to be done by local CERT members Ron and Mary Ohm. And of course, we're going to have any updates from our elected officials if they wish to address our membership, and of course from our police and code departments. The West Side Association strongly supports moving ahead with the Andrews Avenue Corridor land use plan amendment application, which is under new business tonight. Back in 2014, the West Side Association made a presentation to our Planning and Zoning Board on what proactive steps could be taken by our city to bring much needed change to this vital corridor of our city. Since that time, Community Development Services Director Roberta Moore has moved this very important plan to where we are tonight, having gone through the land use study with Keith and Associates, then through the land use plan with Melgren and Planning Group, and now it's before you tonight, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the commission this evening? Seeing none, we will close the public comments. Thank you all for your comments this evening, and move on to the consent agenda as presented and the changes that have been made. Are there any motions on the floor?
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Carson, second by the infirmed but still hanging in there, Commissioner Newton, this evening. Thank you, sir. Any discussion or any objections? Seeing none, the motion carries, and the clerk will proceed with the roll call.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Commissioner Green? Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes.
Mayor Resnick?
Okay. Motion does carry. Moving right along, board appointment has been approved, so thank you very much for your application and willingness to serve. Moving on to resolutions, we have, would the clerk please read Resolution 063?
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, approving and authorizing the proper city officials of the City of Wilton Manors to execute an agreement and an addendum with Waste Management, Inc. of Florida for recycling services within the city, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Are there any motions on the floor relative to this item?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Carson, second by Commissioner Newton. Colleagues, discussion? Any objections to the item moving forward?
No.
Seeing none, the motion carries.
Excuse me, Mr. Vice Mayor,
Yes,
if I may. I would respectfully request that the commission, in so approving this resolution and the agreement and addendum, allow the city manager and myself some flexibility to finalize the specifics of the agreement. The document that came back to me today from Waste Management is slightly different than the document that appears in your agenda. I understand that Waste Management has had a large number of these come through pretty quickly in light of the expiration of the various recycling agreements in Broward County. So with your concurrence, I would respectfully request that you allow the city manager and myself to negotiate the final details of the agreement and the addendum.
I would find that without objection, but I'll defer to the motion.
I'll
I'll
amend my motion to allow that flexibility.
Thank you.
Okay,
I have a question then.
sure.
Have you read any of it to know what some differences are?
I have it here. It's redlined. There are, some of them are not significant. The one that is of concern to me that I took out of the original version that was in the Coral Springs model, It relates to public records, and it gives them some additional authority that may not exist under public records law. That's the big issue for me.
Yep. Okay. And again, just an item for discussion for the general public, there's an issue of timeliness with this item to be approved this evening because we do not want the agreement to expire by the end of this month and for us not to renew and to have an amendment. So that being said, Commissioner Newton, are your questions satisfied?
Fine.
Okay. All right, so I'll ask again, is there any further discussion or any objections to the item as so moved and amended by our attorney?
Good.
Okay, seeing none, the motion does carry, but the clerk will do the roll call.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes. All right, moving right along to public hearings. Would our clerk please read the title and of the proposed ordinance 006?
An ordinance of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, amending Chapter 5 of the city's Code of Ordinances to create Article 9 entitled Emergency Generators Required for Residential Multifamily Dwellings and requiring emergency operation plans, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Before I take up a motion by the commission, this is a public hearing, so members of the public, if you should wish to speak on this item, just as in public comments, you're afforded that ability and you're welcome to come to the podium to speak for 3 minutes. So at this time, I will open this up for comments from the public relative to this ordinance. Mr. Berry, come forward and just name and address for the record, please.
Nick Berry, 2374 Wilton Drive. The concern that I have is on this is how it may be construed on page 237, line 5, that residential multi-family dwellings, including a condominium that is at least 2 stories high. Okay, to give you an example, Belle Isle's 3 stories high. I think it should be added in there with no primary entrance on the first floor. Because from a planning and zoning board standpoint, if it's a 3-story building, the code says you got to have an elevator, but our entrance is on the first floor. So I think there might be some additional language that might be added into it that where a primary entrance is not located on the first floor. And that was my only concern. I think it's a little burdensome on a developer for 3 units or more. I think it should be over 4 or over something larger. It could also be where 50%, if more than 50% are on the ground level. I mean, that gives enough people that are handicapped, that need to be able to get out. I just think a developer, it's pretty stringent. It's very costly. So you build a 4-story and you got to put an extra $100,000 elevator in. My biggest concern is over 2 stories, and I'm 3 stories, and we don't need an elevator. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Rowley, sorry.
Good evening. Paul Rowley, 2016 Northeast 6 Terrace. My concern about this particular proposal is what impact it would have on the cost of the building. There are so many things that impact the cost of buildings. It makes the housing real unaffordable. And we talk about affordable housing, yet we do things like this that just add to the price of it. And I think this is a little stringent. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? No? All right. Thank you very much. We will close that section of public comment relative to this ordinance. And at this time, colleagues, are there any motions on the floor relative to ordinance 006?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Carson, second by Newton. Colleagues, discussion. Commissioner Carson.
First question to my colleague. Commissioner Newton, are you feeling up to hearing this item through?
Sure.
I have a couple of questions, or actually several questions. Thank you, Mr. Berry, for your comments, because I didn't really know how to address the issue about a primary entrance on the first floor. It makes a lot of sense. My first concern is each newly constructed residential multifamily dwelling, including a condominium. Why is including a condominium included here? And if I can get an answer to that, that'll be my first step. Carrie, do you
Well,
want
I mean, it was included to make it clear that condominiums would also be required to comply with the requirements of the ordinance, assuming that's the direction from the commission.
Okay, the definition of multifamily dwelling in our ordinance is a residential dwelling of more than 3 units.
Okay?
So I just wanted to make sure I mean, you're saying including a condominium, but a condominium is a residential dwelling, multifamily dwelling of more than 3 units, or is there something I'm missing?
If it's a condominium, if it is created as a condominium under the Florida statutes governing the creation of condominiums, could be an apartment.
If it's not a condominium and it still has more than 3 units,
It's still covered.
it's still covered.
Okay?
I mean, my concern is you add, including a condominium, which to me signifies that condominiums are different. If they're not, if they are included in multifamily dwellings, then,
Then it can be eliminated.
Right,
Okay.
I thought the same thing. Why don't you have apartments in there? Why don't you have something else in there? I just didn't know why it wasn't.
Okay?
the big concern I have is also kind of dovetailing on what Mr. Berry said. If you have a quadruplex, a 4-unit complex, that 4-unit complex with 2 stories or 3 stories is now required to have an elevator and a generator. Is that correct?
I don't think so.
Well, I think when this was originally presented, I think it was 3 stories, and I thought we changed it from 3 to 2, based upon the request of the commission. So, remember, we cannot regulate 75 feet and higher, because that is preempted under state law. So we're trying to capture, based upon the direction of the commission, to come up with this type of a regulation, a residential multifamily dwelling that does not exceed 74.99 feet. So whatever the threshold is where you want to start that, we can start that.
Let me step back, and I think I can solve this issue. If I have a quadruplex, a 4-unit complex, as is, it would be, we would have to have an elevator and a generator.
Well, is it a
3
stories?
stories.
So you're talking about 3 stories, 4 units?
Correct.
Okay.
3 stories, 4 units each. 4 units
With
with
3
3
stories
stories
each.
each. Correct.
And the front door is on the bottom
But the
floor.
front door is on the
But
bottom.
that's the difference in this. It's all.
Exactly.
I mean, like the gentleman was saying earlier, I think it's what we were talking about. It had nothing to do with 2, 3, 4, 5-story homes or
Got it.
townhomes or whatever. It's if there's another floor that starts a new unit, then this would go into effect.
Right. So I think we do need to adjust our ordinance to provide for when a primary entrance is not located on the first floor. So if we have a quadruplex and each unit has a first floor entry, then I don't think they're required to have elevators and generators.
I didn't think this meant that part. That's why I was kind of confused why he came up, but if we get revert.
Well, it does say, it says each newly constructed
Right,
residential
right.
multifamily dwelling,
Right.
including condominium that's at least 2 stories, must have at least 1 elevator. And,
But that wasn't the intent, I don't think, from anyone.
It was
I don't
not the
believe.
intent. But I understand the
But we can
point.
clarify by doing
okay,
that, sure.
if we can clarify that,
Yes.
I feel much better. Continuing on to page 238,
Commissioner, if I could
Yep.
pause you right there.
Yep.
Then are we going to insert into that item, line 5, a comma and and specifically state that that has no primary entrance on the first floor?
I think that would,
So
Yeah.
since you're the motioner and you're going to make that, I'll recognize it as without objection, since we all seem to be on the same page with
Right.
that. Okay, all right, so move on to your next item, thank you.
this is page 3, but it's page 238, and if you'll look,
Not on mine.
You're looking at the old agenda.
Yeah, I'm looking at the
Got
new
me.
agenda.
I've
Sorry.
got you, page
What page of the ordinance?
261 of 374?
I have 238 of
Thank you.
351. Am
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
looking at
there's
the
two
old
different
one?
ones. I got
You're
these.
looking at
okay.
the old
That's
old,
okay.
agenda, but that's
So-
okay, we're there.
It's on page 3 of the
Right,
ordinance.
that's what got me there, okay.
If you'll look, item D, and this is just more of a typographical thing, 1, 2, 3, the fifth line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
Beginning with...
This ordinance shall maintain a written emergency operations plan which shall detail the sequence of operations before, during, and after a natural disaster or other emergency situation.
Right, and shall. I
And
see.
shall.
Yeah, there should be an and after.
Yep, so the word "and" should be added. That makes sense now.
I'd like a comma after the word during.
Yeah, thanks, good.
Thank you.
Okay. And then continuing down where, 5,
Scribner's.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Right next to the numbers there?
Line 14,
Oh.
and the middle of the sentence begins with, "A logbook containing a listing of quarterly inspections to ensure the generator is in good working condition," and it continues. Who is responsible for the quarterly inspections? I don't find that anywhere in our ordinance.
Hold on a second. Let me find.
Line 18, beginning.
Would that be something the
Yeah.
fire marshal would do?
Well, it's not Broward County who is responsible for doing elevators, so it would have to be somebody at the city who would do that.
Well, and it's elevators. In addition, it's going to be, as we continue on, quarterly inspections to ensure the generator is in good working condition. So it's generator inspection, as well as the written emergency operations plan. The logbook, we continue, the logbook and written emergency operations plan shall be open for, this I love, periodic regular inspections by the city, the cost of which shall be provided in accordance with the fee schedule. Periodic, I mean, I hate to think that we're going to have periodic regular inspections that somebody has to pay for. Periodic is it monthly? Is it yearly? We go on later.
I would suggest annual.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes more sense to me, and I think
Yeah.
annual is addressed somewhere in here. So the city will now be responsible for reviewing the logbook, and what I'm concerned about from, it's a liability standpoint, if we have somebody who has a generator in accordance, and an elevator that has to be operated by a generator in accordance with this ordinance, now we are responsible for inspecting it and looking at the logbook and looking at the emergency operations plan, and I want to make sure that the city is able to do that, and prepared to do that, and how that will impact our staff in reviewing those particular, do we know what emergency protocol plans should be, and how they should be addressed, and what they should look like? I don't, so.
May I? Roberta Moore, Community Development Services Director. I do believe either the fire marshal or the fire inspector under the fire marshal would be capable and qualified to do the annual inspection. They do annual inspections on our businesses as well as multifamilies. A number of our businesses do require annual fire inspections, so we can actually add that on to that requirement for what they look for annually when they do those inspections.
Okay, perfect, thank you, that helps. We go on to say that, and this may just be a term I don't know, in addition for I'm continuing,
Line 27?
in addition for emergency purposes, any person, firm, etc., shall have a generator key located in a Knox box or a lock box?
Knox.
Knox box?
Yes, that was a topic of discussion. It's
Yeah.
apparently called a Knox box.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've been educated.
And that's a Knox box. Could you tell me what that is?
So a Knox box, as simplified as I can, it is a box that has a key inside of it that the fire department as well as the police department would have access to it should they need in an emergency situation to obtain access.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Carson, there are a number of other Knox boxes located throughout the city, and the fire department and the police department have access to those also.
Wonderful. And in conclusion, I want to thank you. Many of the questions that we asked in a previous meeting were addressed in your agenda report in terms of cost, storage, how much developers would be expected to pay, and I appreciate the diligence with which you put that together. I did note that in order to supply the 7 days worth of operating, that I think it was 1,463 gallons of fuel. Are there any underground tanks that handle that much fuel? Or how would that work? I mean, that's $4,800 on an average if they have to run it for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I don't know how, I mean, I know there are 300 or 400 gallons I've seen in generators for homes, but I've not seen that much underground.
Whether it's underground or above ground, there are generators and storage for the fuel systems that are fairly large. We have a number that were recently installed throughout the city and some of our assisted living facilities. There may be the need, however, for fuel to be provided throughout those 7 days. However, the companies that we spoke with did not seem to think that it was going to be an issue.
So the 4,000 gallons stored is a reasonable expectation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Commissioner, I'm going to assume that your friendly amendment for line 22 on that
Yes, sir.
page 3 was to change periodic to annual?
Yep.
Without objection. Okay. Commissioner Newton, do you have anything further you need clarified?
I'm good.
You're good on the item? All right. Any objections on the ordinance as it stands, colleagues? Seeing none, the item does carry, but we'll proceed with the roll call as required by our charter.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes. Okay, moving on to ordinances on their first reading. Clerk, please read ordinance 010.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, amending Article 35 of the Unified Land Development Regulations, ULDR, titled Traditional Neighborhood Overlay District, amending Section 35-070, titled Bonus Density, amending Section 35-080, titled Site Development Standards, providing for temporary relief, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Do I have a motion on the floor relative to this item?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Newton, second by
Second.
Commissioner Carson. All right. Colleagues, discussion? Objections? Seeing none, the motion carries, but the clerk will do the roll call.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes. Ordinance 010, would the clerk please read the title?
You mean 011?
011, yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk, I appreciate that.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Wilton Manors, Florida, amending Article 135 of the Unified Land Development Regulations, ULDR, titled Off-Street Parking, amending Section 135-030, titled Joint Use in Off-Site Facilities, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Any motions on the floor relative to this item?
Motion to approve?
Motion by
Second.
Commissioner Carson, second by Commissioner Newton.
Can I get a page number?
Of the ordinance? Sure.
Yeah, I'm
On the new agenda or on your older one?
on the old one,
You're
I
on the
think.
old one,
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to help you out as best I can here. Ordinance.
Just have to find. I usually write
I've
it
got
down.
289 of 374, but I am on the newer,
Right.
The new one.
So
what
it's
is
going
it?
to be
That's the new one.
before 289.
so before page 289.
Got it. Hang on.
What page are you on, Scott?
Commissioner Carson, while you're getting up to speed, I will just make the comment that I believe that this is a wise ordinance that we would proceed in enabling our businesses to work together collaboratively to deal with parking requirements so as to be proactive with their productivity as businesses, but also finding other ways to meet the requirements of our code. Knowing that parking is a problem, we certainly want to encourage businesses working together to solve it if that is an avenue that can be pursued. And this proposed ordinance does just that. Did you find it yet?
No, sir.
All right.
I've read it. I just want to be on the page. All right. One moment.
You're good with the item?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
Do you have a discussion of the item,
sir.
or you just we're catching up?
Good,
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough. Any objections, colleagues, to the item? Seeing none, the item does pass, but the clerk will do the roll call.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes. Colleagues, we have no unfinished business that I am aware of, and on item 12, reports from boards and administrative officials. Madam Manager, do you have anything?
Just have one thing that I want to mention. Since the last commission meeting and this meeting, we held a very successful Stonewall event for the 19th consecutive year, and I want to thank all of the work that goes into planning and coordinating an event of that scale where our city's population has tripled on a single day. It's an effort that requires absolutely every department in the city to participate and nearly every single employee here, so I want to thank them.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. All right. City Attorney?
Nothing in addition to the written report. Wanted
Okay.
Commissioner Newton out of here.
Very good. All right.
Away from
On
me.
to new business. We did move item A onto consent, so that's been approved. We have item B, the designation of the voting delegate and alternate
Who's going?
for the Florida League of Cities annual conference. I believe the mayor will be attending. I have preliminarily registered, so as in deference, unless one of you two would like to be the alternate, I'm comfortable being such, if you would like.
The
Motion
mayor's
for-
automatically voting, isn't he?
I believe so, as a
Yeah, but
board member, correct?
But we have to designate him as the voting delegate, do we not?
I don't think so,
No?
but I don't know for sure. I thought because he's
Well, if
an
he's
al-
not, we'll make you the voting delegate.
Well,
If not, then you
he
can
is
be
the past president of the Broward League of
Correct,
Cities.
so he automatically gets to be,
To the Broward League, but to the
Right.
Florida League,
Oh.
that I am not certain, to be
That's
honest with
true.
you. I believe
Yeah,
that's
you're
another
right.
level.
That's
So I
true.
think we need to designate.
Sid, you're going?
I'll be attending as the alternate, if that's fine with you guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
So motion to approve the mayor as the voting delegate and Vice Mayor Flippin as the alternate?
Second?
okay. Discussion?
None.
None? No objections? I'm going to assume none. But don't see either of you popping up. All right, so the motion does carry, but the clerk will do the roll call.
Commissioner Carson?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Flippin?
Yes. All right, and Commissioner Carson, you brought up on item C, the discussion on the background checks. So I'll yield the floor to you at this time.
May I do the first item first?
The pride.
About carport?
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I received a letter, and I actually had a discussion with Senator Nan Rich, Commissioner Nan Rich, who has requested that the city of Wilton Manors, she is requesting funding on behalf of Carrefour in the amount of $200,000 for the affordable housing development in the downtown area of Wilton Manors. This is on the Pride Center campus. Currently, the total development cost for the Equality Florida, the Pride Center at Equality Park is $14,670,909. This is for 34 units. Broward County has donated $900,000 pending commission approval. And Senator Rich has requested that the city of Wilton Manors contribute or donate $200,000, which would come out of our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And as you know, several years ago, I requested that the city take a look at the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and see if we could provide affordable housing in our city. The city has never spent any money out of our trust fund. We currently have a balance of $306,265.75. So I would like to come back as a discussion matter or in some form the ability to consider providing some funding to CARFOR for this affordable housing in Wilton Manors at our next City Commission meeting.
I'd be happy to join you in that if Commissioner Newton, do you?
I would too, but I still want to caution, I'm not just going to give $200,000 without seeing some type of plans and have some stipulations on there.
Absolutely.
Because I've heard so many things going on in that piece of property, and they have a gym right now that's actually working without a business license.
Yep.
So there's some problems I have there that needs to be straightened out. I mean, don't want something else when you're not
I
even
agree.
conforming to the city's laws, bylaws now. So I want to make sure that's worked out first, because I'm not going to give something like that when they're not paying attention to the rest of the rules.
Gotcha.
And I agree completely, Commissioner. That was one of the discussions I had with the city manager today, is that we've got to get a better grip on business licenses and activities within the city, period. But I agree with you.
Okay. So I think we're there for next meeting, and the next item you had was the background checks.
Yes. One of the A number of people have spoken to me about how we can ensure that our children are protected, particularly in Wilton Manors. And the only way I have determined that we might be able to do it, the only reasonable way, is to tie the issuance of a business license or a business tax receipt to background checks of employees and volunteers. And that means that if you are, let's say if you are opening a playground or a child care facility is governed, let's say you're opening a playground in the city of Wilton Manors, in order to get that business license, knowing that this playground is going to have children there regularly because that's what it's for, I would like to consider having a business tax receipt that requires background checks in accordance with Florida statute for employees and volunteers that may be at that business prior to the issuance of a valid business license or business tax receipt. And my concern here is that while there are many people who do follow the law and understand the law in terms of protecting our children, you know, we've seen recently that that may not always be the case. So I would like to at least have the city manager consider if there is a way we can tie a business license to, and of course the city attorney, tie a business license issuance to the criteria for background checks. And those background checks I don't anticipate coming to the commission. I would think they would go straight to the police department for approval and issuance then of the business tax receipt. Does that make sense?
Does in concept, absolutely.
Bring it
Commissioner,
up,
did you have-
sure. No, bring it up in the next.
No, I mean,
commission.
there are dynamics that we'll probably want to flesh
Yeah.
out. I
Sure.
mean, my brain is starting to think, but just for an item for discussion, for us to deliberate as a full commission, I don't have any problem with this.
And that's all I'd like.
Yeah. Okay. All right, very good. All right, request for placements of items on the next meeting agenda. Tying into that, colleagues, I had just brought up the issue of the organizational meeting as calendared in November. I think we need to have a discussion on that at our next meeting because of the potential dynamics of elections now that qualifying is over, and what we've approved is our general operating calendar for that month. So let's bring that back then.
Next meeting?
Next meeting, yeah. We're all full here together as a body. All right, so with that, reports from elected officials. Commissioner Newton, you've hung in here because you're sick, are you?
Thank you, Commissioner.
I
Newton.
appreciate it, sir.
You did it.
Yeah.
Without you, we wouldn't have been able to conduct business tonight, sir.
Well, we're done, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I know you
My
feel
pleasure.
bad, and we really appreciate it.
Yep.
No problem.
All right, so
I have nothing.
you have nothing? Commissioner Carson, do you have anything?
A couple of quick things. I want to thank everyone again for Stonewall. It was a magnificent event. I enjoyed it. I thought the businesses and the participants were, it was refreshing, and thank you for all the hard work that went into this. Our staff, I know, was very instrumental, as well as the Wilton Manors Entertainment Group. I also went to the Rally for Families, the immigration rally at the federal courthouse on Sunday. Very powerful, probably 500 or 700 people there, and you know, I hope that we will continue as a community to ensure the safety of families and make sure that children are not separated from families, and see how we can get some 2,000 children back to their parents safely. And I'm going to just say something before you get to it.
Ladies first.
Tomorrow night, Vice Mayor Flippen and I are going to have a wonderful event where we are going to read to children of our community and beyond the Harvey Milk story and the history of the rainbow flag. This will be at the Richard Sullivan Library, and this will hopefully kick off our efforts to continue to incorporate children and families into the city of Wilton Manors. So, Vice Mayor Flippen, you can take that, and thank you so much, and thanks for coming out for this great meeting.
All right. Commissioner, you stole my thunder, so with that, I have no further items to discuss for my report this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, unless there's anything further, we stand adjourned at 7:47 p.m.
Thank you. Better.